It's a hot summer evening. 11-year-old John Dolan is sitting in front of his Xbox. It's 3 a.m., well past his bedtime, and even further past when the computer should be turned off. But John is entranced. He lazily stares at the faint glow of the television, rhythmically mashing his A button. But with every press, and with every cycle of the screen, his disappointment grows. He finally calls it quits after spending $25 on loot boxes. Hi, I'm Colby Dolan. I'm a second semester freshman at Augusta University, and this is my presentation on why loot boxes in video games should be legally classified as gambling. So what are loot boxes? Loot boxes are a paid system of delivering digital goods to players in video games. They can come in a variety of shapes and sizes, ranging from Star Wars-themed sci-fi crates to World War II ammo boxes. The contents can also vary, ranging from cosmetic items such as weapon paint jobs or costumes for characters, to actual game-altering items such as tokens that guarantee victory in a particular match. Despite the diversity, there's one commonality among all loot boxes. Their contents are random. No matter how much money you spend, no matter how much time you spend, the contents are always determined by a random number generator. This versatility, combined with the fact that over a fifth of gamers today are under the age of 18, raises two very important questions. One, are loot boxes just legal gambling for minors? And two, should they be classified as such? The answers to both of these is an unequivocal yes. In order to understand the issue of loot boxes, it helps to know a bit of their history. Loot boxes first appeared in the year 2006 with the game ZT Online, a Chinese MMO or massively multiplayer online. It featured a cartoonish style that brought in lots of young viewers, as well as a rough online marketplace where a loot box could be purchased for less than 25 cents. This ended up being a resounding financial success for the developers, who found that players were able to justify spending thousands of dollars because of the perceived notion that they were receiving more bang for their buck because of the low price. Loot boxes didn't make their way to American markets until 2010 with the arrival of the game Team Fortress 2, which was developed by game publisher Valve. Team Fortress 2 brought two key innovations to the loot box industry. One was the arrival of game-altering items. Up until this point, the only items that appeared in loot boxes had been purely cosmetic, with things like paint jobs for weapons, also called skins, or costumes for characters. But with Team Fortress 2, these items now affected gameplay. A weapon could do more damage or make a character move faster. Additionally, Team Fortress 2 added bundles, which was where the game developer would put multiple loot boxes into a bundle at a higher price and then sell it on the market. And they found that players were willing to spend more money, again for the perceived notion of more bang for your buck. However, the biggest innovation in the loot box industry would come with Valve's next multiplayer game, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, or CSGO. The important thing to know with CSGO is that all the items are purely cosmetic. They're only skins for weapons. The addition that CSGO brought to the table was the innovation of a player-to-player online marketplace. This meant that if a player received an item that they didn't like from a loot box, they could put it on the market where another player could purchase it for real money. This created a veritable stock market for CSGO skins, as players found that more rare skins fetched higher prices, which created more demand and brought in more players. In fact, the most valuable skin ever traded on CSGO was a sniper rifle skin that was digitally signed by a YouTuber that sold for a whopping $60,000. With this background in mind, we can begin to examine the legal definition of gambling. This is not an easy thing to do, as American gambling laws are a smorgasbord of state and federal laws. However, the general consensus is that at least three conditions must be met for an activity to be considered gambling. The first is consideration. This just means that the game has to cost money to participate. It can't be free to play. The second is chance, and this is where there's some variability. For example, with games like poker, they say it's a game of skill and chance. The definition is that chance has to be a deciding factor in how the game is played. And the third is prize. This means that there has to be a prize given for winning the game, and this must have an equivalent cash value that is cashed out by the casino or whoever is administrating the game. Now, at first glance, this seems to fit the definition of loot boxes. The problem is, looking into the minutiae of it, there are a couple of key issues. The first is with consideration. It seems simple. The player pays money and receives a loot box. However, most games feature a financial middleman between the player and the box in the form of an in-game currency. So the player pays money, gets the currency, and uses the currency to buy the loot box. This seems insignificant, but it's actually enough to justify it not being legal consideration. There isn't really an issue with chance, as chance is an even bigger factor in loot boxes than it is in games like poker or blackjack. However, the next issue comes with prize. As I said before, the prize has to have an equivalent cash value that is cashed out by the administrator. This seems to fit at first glance the CSGO marketplace. The problem is the values are not fixed. They're set by the players, and the developer does not pay this money. The player does. With the legal definition of gambling in mind, we can now examine some of the mental effects that gambling has on people. What happens when you replace aces and kings with lightsabers and jetpacks? And what happens when the participant is between the ages of 8 and 12? Well, the University of York in England set out to find out just that. They conducted a survey which consisted of a blind study given to gamers with a number of questions involving gambling, one of which was, how much money do you spend per month on loot boxes? This data was then compared with the Problem Gaming Severity Index, or PGSI, which is a standardized survey used to determine whether or not someone is likely to have a problem with gambling in their future life. The relationship is a bit scary. UI found a strong correlation between high loot box spending and high chance of gambling addiction. This is especially worrying when you take the concept of age into play. Children are more impressionable than adults, and this can have extremely negative effects on a developing brain if a child is to become addicted to gambling. Now, the common response to my argument is that technically there are age restrictions in place to prevent gamers from accessing things they shouldn't. If you go to GameStop right now and buy a game, at the bottom left-hand corner there will be a letter that corresponds to the age group which is allowed to play that game, the highest of which is M, meaning 17 or older, without the presence of a parent or guardian, similar to R-rated movies. The issue with this is that the ESRB, the organization that creates these ratings, is not a governmental organization. They don't have legal authority. Their only control is over the distribution of these games. And game stores are not necessarily keen on denying customers the right to spend money at their stores. In some small cases, it can help things, but overall, there isn't a huge motivation for game stores to follow these rules. Finally, what are some potential solutions to this problem? Well, there are several, ranging from less severe to more severe. Some of the less severe ones are, one, putting a limit on the amount of time and money a person can spend in an online store. This is similar to the fact that a bartender can deny you service if you've had too much. Second is two-factor authentication. This means that if someone were to purchase something on their console, there would be a notification sent to their phone to confirm the purchase. And third is to remove duplicates of items. So once you've received an item one time, you can't receive it again. However, these really aren't enough, and the two best are age restriction and buyer protection. Age restriction meaning that if an individual is not over the age of 18 or 21, depending on the state, he or she cannot participate in the activity. And finally, buyer protection, which would enable parents to refund accidental purchases from their children. Overall, these two are the best methods for protecting people like John from spending all of their lemonade stand money on diminishing chances. Thank you for watching.